Hi, I'm Shubhra Gupta, the film critic of the Indian Express, and these are my top five Indian films of 2023. I am not going to rank these films, but I will talk about them in no specific order, but just the pointers where because of which I like these films very much. I will begin with Pathaan because that is the film that actually got Bollywood back on track. It got Shah Rukh Khan back on track, and the combination was explosive. It was a film that we had actually been waiting for a while, and very often what happens with films that come with built-in expectations is that they let you down. At least this is what I have found in my years of watching movies. But this one was exactly what it promised. It was supremely silly. It was a big entertainer. It was Shah Rukh Khan saying, "Hey, I did not go anywhere. I'm back and watch me." And then there was, of course, Deepika Padukone, and there was John Abraham, and it was a spy saga. It was a very quickly, a very fast-paced film that actually hit all the marks. So that's Pathaan, and then. I will follow that up with Jawaan, which is also Shah Rukh Khan, which came in August, which a few months later. But again, it was a very strong statement of purpose and a very strong statement of intent that he was not that Shah Rukh Khan was a beloved of the audience, and this time he actually went a little more out there in terms of talking about why he was the star that everybody should be watching, because he talked about farmer suicides. He talked about him being a Jawan, and being a soldier. He talked about crony capitalism, and he talked about EVMs and all the hashtags and all the high points that he put them out there. And the film wasn't fantastic in all of it, but there was enough in it to keep me watching. Then, of course, there was Vinod Chopra's 12th Fail, which I thought was really brought BBC back into, it got his mojo back in storytelling, in the kind of movies that he's done before, which is actually very different from the films that he's done before, which is why it intrigued me as to where it was coming from. But the story of a young man with literally nothing to his credit, in terms of there is no cultural capital, there is no money, there is nothing, and he comes from a tiny little hovel. It's not even a village in India, and how he cracks the UPSC. It's a film that we've seen in bits and in pieces before, but this one, I think, is really, it touched me, and I think it really is definitely one of BBC's top films for sure, including mine. Um, right. And then, of course, I loved OMG 2, which was Amit Rai's film, and which again was a very unusual Hindi film, I thought, because it talked about so many taboo subjects. Especially talked about young men and young women and sexual desires, and talked about, specifically mentioned the word masturbation, which is truly astounding for in a film industry like ours, which is so careful about going being explicit about anything at all. I mean, we can do the most vulgar thrusts and the kind of shakes in our songs, but when it comes to actual themes, we are very, very worried about basically making people a little bit like worried about what the subject is, or just we get so what's the word I'm looking for, we get so worried, and we get so scared, and we get so fearful about saying anything real about about the real things that we should be talking about, especially about sex, that this film really hit the marks in very many ways. So definitely OMG 2 is definitely part of my five. And the last one is Rocky or Rani, which actually really didn't deserve to be in this five because I didn't like it all the way through. There were problems with the film that I thought were, it was much too verbose. And it had many things which we had already seen in Karan Johar's films. It was not particularly original in very many ways, but why I think it sneaked into my list and it needs to be there is the way it smashed patriarchy in that one fabulous song sequence in which Ranveer Singh and Tota Roy Chaudhary, do that lovely dance number. They are wearing red, the color of passion, and it kind of swirls and twirls, and it really it it huffs and puffs and breaks the house down. It was an amazing sequence, and I think in the kind of high pitched melodrama mainstream kind of way, it reached out to the numbers of people in who were watching it, that a smaller film, I mean, not a smaller film, a film which had a slightly different kind of tone and tenor wouldn't have managed. Karan Johar actually just managed it with this one sequence, and I think just for that it fully deserves to be in my top five. Of course, after this, I do have a few more, which were, you can call them honorable mentions, or you can call them films that I also really, really liked. And any other year, they perhaps may have been in my top five. And I think these are also very, very important films, particularly the films that don't really come attached with big names, big studios, big stars, but still, leave an impact because of the storytelling, because of the fact that they are, very honest, and they come with a great deal of integrity. I think, and out of this lot, I think Avinash Arun's Three of Us was really something that I loved. It's about three people, three adults. And it is such a pleasure to watch adults in Hindi movies because we still are, geared towards telling stories of people who haven't really reached adulthood. I mean, they're just pretending to be adults and yet not. So here in Three of Us, Swanand Kirkire, Jaideep Ehlawat, and Shabali Shah played this threesome who have a connection and who forge newer connections alongside talking about memory and forgetfulness and about things that happen as we age. It's the way it's been shot, the way it's been told. It's definitely one of the best films of the year for me. And then, of course, there was Sudhir Mishra's Apwa and Anubhav Sinha's Bheed, which I feel are companion pieces and are very important documents of what happened in this country just a few years ago. A film like Bheed, which talked about the migrant, the whole palayan. There's a word in Hindi which is called palayan, which means just the exodus of people who were working in cities, who could not live here anymore because it was just not sustainable for them, and who had to walk miles to get to their villages. It just sort of came and went, but I think it's definitely a film that needs to be marked. Pretty much as I think is Sudhir Mishra's Apwa, which is again a film in which he goes back to his one of his best films. I think he goes back to Hazaro Khwaishein Aisi in that one, where he talks about the tone is very much of that older film, which is I think his best. And here he it's about a Rajasthan village, which is a contemporary story, but it could be anything in the last 30 or 40 years that has been happening in this country. It's also about the kind of problems that social media and our and the way we have lost our moral compass. I think he combines both these things. There was, of course, also two other films that I want to mention. I want to say that both Thank You for Coming and Duck Duck, very different films, but which had women in their in this the center of the frame as well as the center of the story. Again, it's about a subject that we don't talk about much. It's about female desire, and it's about the orgasm, and about how a woman who wants to experience that is has to go through the kind of things that she does, which I think, again, it was Bhumi Pednekar who did a really good job, and her co-stars were also extremely, sort of the supporting acts were all great. Again, Dhak Dhak, which was not exactly the best film, but again, it had the four or five women in the center of the screen on a motorcycle, going out for a drive, and taking a trip up to the mountains. I thought it was just the visual of women together doing things which are not attached to men. I think it's just so pleasing that I definitely wanted to have it as one of my favorite films of the year.